Oh. So here's the state of play as we join in, and all three matches are at 1-0. Eric Campusano is 1 up, and that's where we're going to start. This is in Legacy. Remember, Standard on the top, Modern in the middle, Legacy on the bottom. Eric Campusano 1-0 up on Edward-Song, but Daniel Weiser leads Tuan-Phan, and Ray Huang leads Ryan Kubin 1-0. So advantage to the undefeated but not perfect team of Huang-Weiser and Song.
And here we see kind of a classic turn one play. We've got a Thoughtseize from Campusano into a Brainstorm from Edward-Song, and this is kind of a classic use of Brainstorm in protecting your hand.
Yeah, I mean, one of the most powerful reasons that you play Brainstorm, or one of the best reasons to play Brainstorm, is that it hides your most important cards from a Thoughtseize. And Edward-Song, he's playing Sneak and Show. He wants to make sure that he's able to assemble that combo, and Thoughtseize is exactly the kind of card that picks that combo apart, so he can put the two most important pieces to his combo onto the top of his library and make it so that Campusano can't attack them. Another interesting play that you can make, kind of like a leveling play, if you will, with a card like Brainstorm in this type of situation, is you can use Brainstorm and put a redundant combo piece back on the top of your deck, and then it looks like to your opponent that you have only one copy of that combo piece, and then they end up taking it from you, and then you just draw the same copy.
2 copies of Emrakul in Edward-Song's hand, along with 2 copies of Brainstorm, so just, potentially just what you mentioned, we've got a handful of redundant spells here.
Yeah, now Edward-Song, because he has more Brainstorms, and by more I mean 2 more, and a fetch land, it means that even though he currently has this redundant copy of his Giant Eldrazi, he's still going to be able to get rid of, it and shuffle it away. But he doesn't have to, because Campusano apparently is thinking to himself, okay, maybe he has more in the way of disruption to get the other one out of his hand. Or perhaps his teammates are not agreeing with his line there. I'm looking at it.
So whatever Edward-Song had left on the top of his library, currently being shuffled away along with that Emrakul back into the deck.
Yeah, and that's another thing that Campusano might have been thinking about. He thinks, okay, Song might have put important cards back on the top of his library to protect them from the Thoughtseize. If he did so, then if I take Emrakul the Aeon's Torn, it's going to shuffle his library and make sure that he doesn't draw those important cards that he left on the top of his library. So a lot of interesting stuff here happening, and we haven't even gotten to the second turn of the game yet.
That's Legacy for you.
Absolutely. This a more traditional matchup. We have the Sneak and Show deck on the right in the hands of Edward-Song, and on the left we have a 4-color. Oh no, this is we have a 4-color Stoneblade type of deck, a Stoneforge Mystic deck.
We see one of the critical pieces of the puzzle Edward-Song just drew last turn. Sneak attack. Brainstorm here from Campusano. Brainstorm in response from Edward-Song.
Brainstorm, we've talked at length about how powerful this card is already yesterday, but you'll see how both players have a fetch land on the battlefield. This means that Brainstorm will essentially allow them to draw 3 cards, put 2 cards which they don't necessarily want onto the top of their library, and then they can shuffle their deck so that they won't have those 2 cards anymore and they don't have to worry about them. So a really powerful interaction there. Sometimes you may even want to wait until you have 2 cards that you're not particularly fond of in your hand before you pull the trigger on that Brainstorm.
And you mentioned yesterday that Brainstorm is one of the cards in Legacy that just makes your deck feel so much smaller than it is.
Absolutely. Legacy is a format where you can play 2 of something, or in some cases even 1 of something, and have a fairly reliable chance of drawing it from your deck over the course of 5 or so turns. And one of the major reasons for that is cards like Ponder and Brainstorm.
All right, here you see the play you just mentioned, JVL. Edward-Song cracking that fetch land to shuffle his library and whatever he had put on top of it away.
Campusano, perhaps with too many good cards, not wanting to go ahead and sacrifice that fetch land right away. But Campusano did leave a dice on the top of his library, so perhaps he is planning on sacrificing that fetch land before he draws his card.
Another brainstorm here from Song.
And here's Song, a very aggressive brainstorm, no shuffle effect. He's going to have to draw one of these 2 cards that he puts back on the top of his library. And it looks like he just has an overwhelming number of brainstorm or ponder effects because he put 2 back on the top of his deck.
All right, here we go. Sneak attack from Edward Song.
And I cannot imagine that Campusano is going to allow this one to resolve.
No way. Force of will.
Bye. How rare is it, Jake, to actually see the Force of Will cast for 3 blue? Is Force of Will almost always the alternate cost?
No, I'd say it's probably hard cast somewhere around 15% of the time that it's cast.
Okay, so 1 in 5, 1 in 6, something like that.
Yeah, and the thing is that as a hard counter, it counters the card that matters. And when you get to these later stages of the game, not that we're at them yet, but when you get to the later stages of the game, paying 5 mana for a counterspell when you have 6 lands and both people have 2 cards in their hand is basically the same as paying 2 mana for a counterspell. So yeah, it's very, very important to fight the battles in the early game with the alternate cost. But in the later game, if you only have 1 counterspell in your hand, it doesn't really matter how much it costs.
So what do you make of the play of Edward Song kind of running out that sneak attack right there without any ability to protect the play?
I mean, it was aggressive, but in some ways you're just trying to, see if your opponent has it.
Sure.
And, against a deck like Campusano's, you might catch him with a force but without a blue card. Or, there are just so many situations where you may just want to get that force out of his hand and force him to discard a card.
All right, Leovold, Emissary of Trest, hits the table for Eric Campusano.
Yeah, now this card is quite strong. And the major reason why this card is so good is because of how many ponders and brainstorms there are when you're playing Legacy. The first text on Leovold is that your opponent can't draw more than 1 card on a turn. And then in addition to that, whenever a permanent you control or you become the target of a spell that your opponent controls, you get to draw a card. So here, Edward Song, he's going to look at the top 3 cards of his deck, but he's not going to draw after he casts this ponder. He's just going to put those back on the top of his deck and or shuffle his library.
Yep,
Yeah.
there we go. Can't draw it. All right, just has to pass the turn back to Campusano, who is going to get in with that Leovold.
Leovold, kind of an awesome card.
Oh, absolutely.
Advising the team.
Stoneforge Mystic here. He's going to find Eric a sword.
A sort of feast and famine there. This is a sword that you don't see a ton of. At least I haven't seen a ton of it. And what this does is it will give Leovold, once it's equipped, and or Stoneforge Mystic, protection from green and black and +2/+2. And then whenever it hits Edward Song, it's going to make Edward Song discard a card and untap all of Eric Campusano's lands.
Oh, nice. Blood Moon here from Song. Is that going to slow down Eric at all?
Absolutely. I think Eric is, unless his hand is just all blue cards and a bunch of Force of Wills, it's really important to counter this Blood Moon. Otherwise, his lands basically don't do anything. So he's searching up the basic island.
Does he care, though? I mean, as long as he can equip that sword on something and start swinging?
Well, the thing is he... it looks like he's just letting it resolve. And I guess you're right, but the problem is the untap all of your lands ability becomes a lot weaker when your lands don't really do anything.
Sure.
So there's the sword from Campusano.
And it looks like shields are down.
All right, here we go. See an equip. Who will carry the sword? Stoneforge Mystic.
Well, that's the one with the arms up in the air going, pick me, pick me.
Yeah. The other reason why you'd want to target Stoneforge Mystic is because it means that if your opponent does have a card like Pyroblast, which Edward Song does have, that he's not going to be aiming that card at the sworded creature, if you will. So now Edward Song going to have to discard a card, down to just 2 cards in the hand.
Yeah, Pyroblast, normally we see the first mode on this, counter target spell if it's blue, but it does have another one, destroy target permanent if it's blue.
Yeah, and that means that Pyroblast can be used to kill the Leovold, but it could not be used to kill that Stoneforge Mystic.
Batterskull.
Another card that doesn't care about that Blood Moon.
Beep, beep.
Blood Moon, we just don't care.
Brainstorm here for Song. Is he just too far up against it based on this equipment that we're seeing from Campusano, or is he still okay?
I mean, it's still very possible for Edward Song to win if he's able to just combo out of the next turn, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen, and he may have been discarding down to 1 card there, which meant that he would have really had to have had, exactly the cards he needed between the top of his library and what was in his hand.
So Campusano wins 2-0, but that's not good enough yet. One of Ryan Kubin or Tuan Fan have to win their match from 1-0 down. So why don't we head across town? We're going to go to, this time, Modern. And I understand, just reading from chat, some people you seem to think that we do actually hate Standard, which is clearly not true. Of course we like Standard, but we don't often get a chance to show you some cool Legacy decks. We don't often get a chance. We don't have as many Modern GPs as Standard GPs. It is the back end of a Standard format. It's a well-explored Standard format. So I think most of you understand that that's generally why we're going to show Standard most of the time, last of the 3. So we're heading back to Modern here to see whether Daniel Weiser can equalize the matches at 1-1 and put them back in the driver's seat with Ray Huang currently 1-0 up over Ryan Kubin.
All right, here we see a pieces of the puzzle being resolved here for Daniel Weiser, who looks to be on Storm.
Yeah, and, if he's going to take the Gifts Ungiven for sure, it's now a decision between Remand and or Pyretic Ritual. Remand may help him, fight through some amount of counter magic, whereas Pyretic Ritual creates redundancy for the combo, depending on what's in his hand.
Daniel Weiser currently up a game over Tuan Fan.
And this is the deciding match here.
Yes, it is.
All right, so that, because Ray Huang just took care of business against Ryan Kubin in Standard.
Yeah, Fan is able to win this game and win the 3rd game, then he will maintain an untarnished record for his team, and they'll advance on a 9-0 here. But if Weiser's able to win, then still no losses, just a single draw for his team.
I'm wondering if Fan should be worried at this point that he doesn't have any permanence in play versus a Storm player.
Yeah, and that's one of the things about Storm is that you not only need to be disrupting them, but you also need to be providing a clock, because eventually they're going to have such a hand that they're going to be able to fight through a large amount of counter magic. Another problem here for Campusano or for Fan is that he's not hitting land drops, so he's only got those 3 lands in play. So even if he has like 4 counter spells, he's probably only going to be able to cast 2 of them, and going off through 2 counter spells is not impossible for the Storm deck by any stretch of the imagination.
And is Daniel Weiser running through his head? Do you think he's just kind of setting himself up to think, well, say Tuan has something that can disrupt what I'm trying to do, will I be able to survive through it? Just setting himself up perfectly to storm off when he needs to.
Yeah, and I mean, there are a lot of ways that Daniel Weiser can, set up to make the combo happen. And I think the thing that, looking at these post-sideboarded lists, the thing that Weiser has going for him more than anything against counter magic that the opponent might play is Giga Drouse. And
oh, it's my favorite name magic card.
Yeah, so he can tap all of Fan's lands with the Giga Drouse, and not only is he tapping all of Fan's lands with that card, but because Giga Drouse, as it goes on the stack, is multiple spells, Fan can't just counter the Giga Drouse for 1 mana with, some type of card that he may have in his deck. He's going to need to counter each of those copies separately, and that's really difficult to do.
All right, a Gifts Ungiven here for Daniel Weiser, just further advancing his plan.
Yeah, and the fact that Weiser is, resolving a Gifts Ungiven here means to me that the game is likely going to end on the following turn.
Whenever I play against Storm and Gifts Ungiven hits the table, I'm just like, well, I pretty much feel like it's all over. Maybe that's a little preemptive, but it doesn't feel good.
And I mean, Weiser here could, if he wants to, maybe wait another turn cycle. and he has a mana advantage. He's going to have a big card advantage, and that may allow him to Giga Drowse into his combo. And the thing about his combo here is that even if Fawn then, has, let's say, a Thoughtseize, or even a Thoughtseize and an Inquisition on the following turn,
Sure.
the way Weiser's deck works, the fact that Passion Flames can be flashed back from the graveyard means that Weiser won't really care about those things. They just mean that Fawn's mana is going to all be tapped. The other thing is that Weiser can even just Giga Drowse during Fawn's upkeep.
Yeah. Daniel Weiser getting some input from his teammate, Ray Huang. There we saw his hand peeking in, helping him decide which cards to choose. Let's take a look. Which two does he want more than any?
And the thing is, because it's a Past and Flames combo deck, it really doesn't matter that much.
Doesn't matter.
Which one you give him. I mean, you don't necessarily want to give him the rituals because it's going to give him the tools that he needs to fight through that counter magic, and you can't fight those counter battles over the rituals because he'll just say, okay, put the ritual in the graveyard and then go off the next turn and beat you.
No matter what, it kind of feels bad.
Yeah. At this point, it looks like Weiser is going to be able to very comfortably go off through one, if not two, counter spells here.
Of course, worth noting that the team on the left here that's going to have to fight back through the Storm player in order to win this match is currently undefeated. So this would be their first loss of the tournament, and there would be no more undefeated teams left in the entire room.
Are they the only undefeated team? There's one other? Or is
No,
there the
that's
only
it.
one?
These are the only two.
Oh, wow. All right, so here, starting to look through his graveyard, think, how am I going to win on this turn? And he most certainly can. I think he's just thinking about how he can win on this turn through two counter spells. And again, if he does have Giga Drowse, which we're not sure that he has, then he may just want to wait a turn. If he does not, he might just go off. Ooh, I like it. I like it. I like
empty
it.
the Warrens here. Kolaghan's command from Fawn.
Yeah, he's picking a fight with,
Remand.
I'm going to make a pair of goblins here.
I love it. Just two.
Just to confirm, pairings are up for round number 10, so we're already gearing up towards... it's going to be Legacy again to get us going in round number 10. JVL and Maria don't know what deck's coming, but it's pretty interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing this one in action. Some pretty big creatures, quite a lot of basic lands. We'll see what happens with that. So,
Tasigur, the Golden Fang, is trying to get some work done here for Fawn, but might be too late. There's that Giga Drowse.
All right, so yeah, Stubborn
Stubborn
Denial,
Denial.
but as it turns out, Stubborn Denial, again, Giga Drowse replicates, so all of those are different spells. And here we're going to watch Weiser do his thing.
Yep, there we go.
It's going to be, how many... We don't even keep count. I mean, at this point, he's got an embarrassment of riches. He's able to go off very easily. Fawn has no untapped mana.
Yeah, the road is clear ahead for Daniel Weiser here, and Tuan Fawn has seen the writing on the wall.
all right, so that does it. That's Huang-Weiser and Song. They win. It's time for round 10 in just a minute. Don't go anywhere. See you very, very soon.